This is Green Street, the environmental health show. Patti and Doug Wood and our worldwide network of scientists, medical professionals, authors, researchers, and citizen activists, all here every week to keep you informed about things we're learning about in the world that can impact your life and how you can protect yourself and your family in this increasingly toxic world. Basically, everything has to change. That's the conclusion of many scientists on the cutting edge of issues like climate change, plastic pollution, and chemical toxins. We can't expect or wait for some miracle to come along and clean up the mess we've created. And by we, I mean specifically the corporations which have profited from creating things that are harmful to humans and kept making those things even after they knew how toxic they were. Today on Green Street, we're really excited to welcome back our friend Kyla Bennett, Director of Science Policy at PEER, that's Public Employees for Environmental Responsibility, and hear what she has to say about many of the most pressing, some say existential, environmental issues facing us today. That's all coming up in a few minutes here on Green Street, but first, some of the stories that hit our radar screen this week. Patti, what did you get this week that we should all know about?
Well, actually, this is good news.
Oh, really?
Yep. This is good news.
Okay.
And it's about simple ways that cities can save people from extreme heat.
All right.
So in the United States, heat already kills more people than any other form of extreme weather, and nowhere is it more dangerous than in cities. Okay, not surprisingly.
Yep.
So now that our planet is getting warmer, scientists and urban designers are now scrambling to research and deploy countermeasures, especially in the Southwest. Not more air conditioning, but more passive, simple cooling techniques. The one that they're really focused on is cool roofs, okay, which actually bounce the sun's energy back into space using special coatings or reflective shingles.
Now, I've always wondered about this when you look at buildings that have dark gray or black roofs.
Right. They're just
heat sinks.
Oh, they're heat
right?
sinks. Unbelievable. So scientists say that if we invested in increasing the reflectivity of existing materials in the built environment, we could reduce the number of ER visits and the number of deaths substantially, in some cases over 50%.
Really?
Just putting a white roof or reflective shingles on a roof. Though simple from an engineering standpoint, cool roofs turned out to be the most effective at bringing down temperatures.
This is such a simple idea. You would think people would have thought about this a long time ago.
Yeah, and they have the luxury of scale, so you can basically swap out any dark heat-absorbing roof, or a heat sink as you called it, for one made of these reflective materials, or simply paint it white.
Yeah.
Think about how much hotter you'd get on a 95-degree day wearing a black shirt.
Sure.
Than a white one,
sure.
Okay? Even clay roof tiles can be painted. So it's important, but it's also an environmental justice issue. So, wealthier neighborhoods tend to be greener to begin with.
Right.
More vegetation,
trees,
trees, a lot of, grass and so on, whereas lower income neighborhoods have often been deliberately zoned to host more industrial activities, right? So you have industrial buildings, big buildings made of concrete with black roofs that really soak up the heat. The research suggests that the more passive cooling techniques that cities deploy, the less reliant they'll be on air conditioning.
Sure.
But it's interesting because New York City now has just passed a law saying that all building owners now have to provide air conditioning. It's the law. They have to provide air conditioning for their tenants. So it's like, wait a second, why not just paint the roof white?
Yeah.
I'm actually going to send this article to the friends that we have in the New York City Council and say, you know what? This is actually proven to lower the temperatures better than anything else.
This seems like a no-brainer. We could invest in some 55-gallon containers of white paint and significantly reduce our energy load. Okay, cool. Well, I've got some not-so-great news. A new study has found for the first time that the lettuce that you buy has chemicals from tires. Mm-hmm. Well, don't say, that was supposed to surprise you.
Tires are one of the main sources of plastic particles in our environment.
Concern is growing about the hundreds of chemicals, up to 15% of the weight of the tire, that's the chemicals, are 15% of the weight of the tire that are shed into the environment as the tire degrades over time. Researchers have already demonstrated that some crops, including lettuce and fruit, can take up microplastics, possibly putting human health at risk. I guess they have to put the possibly in there, but we know that it's
We know, yes.
New study has shown for the first time that store-bought lettuce contains chemical tire additives. Researchers found one or more
Holy
of
smoke.
16 different additives in 20 of the 28 lettuce samples. So most of the commercially grown lettuce that you're finding in the supermarket has chemicals from tires in the lettuce. And, we're probably, if they looked, what the thing is, if you don't look for it, you won't find it. In fact, Kyla Bennett mentioned this in our interview today. But, if you looked for tire additives in probably most agricultural products, you'll probably find them.
Yep.
Anyway, that's the news.
Well, I had the good news.
Okay, I agree. You had the good news.
And it's not often that you have good news.
Yeah, you didn't.
But it needs to be deployed. Whole idea of these cool roofs.
Can I just mention that you didn't say the word PFAS in the whole news piece?
I know. I'm so proud of myself.
Unbelievable.
Kyla's going to say it a lot.
Okay, we'll be right back.
Okay.
We humans have gotten into some bad habits. Over the years, we've become accustomed to new inventions and discoveries that make our lives easier. Whatever it is, if it makes things easier for us, it's good. Or so we thought. The quest for things that make our lives easier has led to some really horrible outcomes that we are just now beginning to appreciate. The environmental and human health cost of artificial turf fields, or plastic bottles, or non-stick pans, or cheap gasoline, or new miracle fabrics is now looming over the world's population like the sword of Damocles. And unless we change some fundamental ideas about how we live on this planet, it could soon spell the end of our comfortable life as we know it. Joining us on Green Street today to blow the whistle and implore us to pay attention to science and scientists is one of the best in the business, Dr. Kyla Bennett. A former EPA official who blew the whistle on activities at the agency, Kyla is now the Director of Science Policy at PEER, the nonprofit Public Employees for Environmental Responsibility. Kyla has a PhD in ecology from the University of Connecticut and a law degree from Lewis and Clark Law School in Portland, Oregon. Patti and I spoke with Kyla yesterday, and we asked her first to talk about the PEER organization and how it protects environmental whistleblowers across the country. Here's our interview with Dr. Kyla Bennett.
PEER is an acronym for Public Employees for Environmental Responsibility. We are a national, nonpartisan nonprofit. What PEER does is we support and defend local, state, and federal employees who work in the environmental or health arenas.
Specifically whistleblowers, right? I mean, it's whistleblowers,
Specifically
who
whistleblowers,
need,
yep.
they're the ones that need your help most, right?
Correct. And we're very client driven. So we don't sit around a table and say, okay, next year we're going to work on this. We wait for employees.
We wait for the phone call.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. And how often does the phone ring? I hate to ask this question.
Constantly.
It's
Really?
constantly.
Yeah, constant.
Okay, so can you just go over just a sampling of the issues that people are calling you about, public employees?
Sure. So one of the big ones that we're working on right now is PFAS in biosolids. We got a call from an investigator and basically a policewoman in Johnson County, Texas, who had some farmers who were complaining about awful smells and their animals were dying. And so we worked with Johnson County, Texas to test the biosolids and the soil and water and the dead animals on the neighboring farm and found massive quantities of PFAS. And that PFAS is from the biosolids, which is sewage sludge.
Right.
So I think a lot of people don't realize that when they use biosolids on their garden or in conventional farms, that it's just human waste, basically. So we actually just filed suit against EPA, asking EPA to put limits on the amount of PFAS in biosolids before it could be land applied.
So where does the PFAS come from in the sewage sludge?
It comes from several places. It comes from industry, because of course industry discharges to wastewater treatment plants, but it also comes from municipal wastewater treatment plants, because PFAS are so ubiquitous. They're in products and they're in our food and they're in our water. So when we urinate or defecate, there's PFAS in that. and it gets into the waste stream, and it's actually concentrated in the wastewater treatment plant, and more is created in the treatment process. The treatment process does not remove PFAS. So it's from our makeup, our shampoo, pesticides, paints, auto supplies, our food, our carpet cleaning discharges. It's everywhere.
Right.
So that's where it's coming from. And so we're finding tens of thousands parts per trillion of various PFAS in these biosolids, and then they're spread on crops, get taken up by the plants. The cows will eat the plants and the cows die. So it's really heartbreaking. And there's really not much of a better way to poison our food supply than to use PFAS-laden biosolids and use pesticides laden with PFAS, which is what we're doing in this country. It's despicable.
EPA has authority over this, correct?
Oh, yes, they do.
And why do you suppose they haven't done anything about it? I mean, this has been in the news for a while.
Good question. They claim they're working on PFOA and PFOS, putting limits of PFOA and PFOS on biosolids. And that's a good start, because actually, I don't think I have seen a sample of biosolids that doesn't have one or both of those in there. So if they do address those two, it will help address all of them. But it's going to take them years to get those regulations out. And it's ridiculous, because they've known about this for a long, long time. And it's kind of like, I've heard some people say, oh, it's just Texas and Maine. No, it's not.
It's everywhere.
It's every farm, every conventional farm that uses biosolids will be contaminated with PFAS if we check. It's kind of like under the Trump administration, where he said, if we don't test for COVID, we won't find it. If you don't test, you're not going to find it. It doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So in most cases at EPA, there's a lineup of people opposing regulation. Who's going to oppose some strict, regulation on PFAS? It would seem to me that would be an unpleasant position to be in.
You'd be very surprised. The ACC, the American Chemistry Council, is fighting these all the time. The amount of money spent by lobbyists on behalf of the PFAS industry is absolutely amazing. They spent over $100 million. An NGO did a study on how much money they put in, but also the wastewater treatment plants. So the cities,
because they're making money, because they're revenue source.
Not so much that they're making a lot of money with the biosolids, but that the question they keep asking me when they're pushing back is like, what are we supposed to do?
What are we supposed to do? Exactly. Yeah, I just wanted to say for our listeners, it's not just coming out of toilets, it's coming out of everything that goes down your drain.
Correct.
Everything that goes down
your drain. Yep.
Okay.
When your fluorinated shampoo bottle leaches PFAS into the shampoo, and you shampoo your hair and you wash that shampoo down the drain, that's going into the wastewater treatment plant. That's ending up in the biosolids.
Right.
So the state of Maine, the only state in the country that has now banned the land application of biosolids, the only reason they were able to do this is because they, number one, banned the importation of waste from other states, and two, they have a relatively small population for their land size. So they're able to landfill their biosolids. That being said, I read something that said they're going to run out of landfill space in 2028 if they're landfilling all their biosolids. So this is a national crisis. It's a problem all across the country. And when people say to me, well, what are we supposed to do with the biosolids? My response is, there's a solution. And the solution is that EPA needs to define PFAS broadly, regulate them as a class, and ban all non-essential uses, and then it won't be in the biosolids, and then you can use the biosolids on your farms.
Yeah.
But that's not going to happen, right? So here we are.
So you said PFAS and PFOA, but there's 15,000 PFAS chemicals.
Sure. Yeah, there's a ton, and EPA is still approving new ones.
No.
How is this happening? Not only have they not stopped the manufacture of the legacy PFAS like PFOA, but they're allowing new ones that we don't have enough toxicity information on. One of the things that drives me crazy about this whole PFAS conversation is that the industry keeps saying, oh, there's safe PFAS. No, there's not safe PFAS. There are PFAS that we do not yet have toxicity information for.
We don't have the data.
The absence of evidence is not the same thing as the evidence of absence.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. What else has come across your desk in the past few months? Other whistleblowers that have come forward with issues?
We're still working with our EPA clients, our 4 EPA clients from the chemicals division of EPA. And we're expecting the Inspector General reports to be coming out hopefully this summer and fall, which I am cautiously optimistic that these reports will lead to upheaval at EPA and fixing that division. So we still get a lot of EPA people calling us. We have some clients in Maryland talking about stream restoration, which is a debacle. We still have right whale clients calling us, people concerned about the North Atlantic right whale, which goes all up and down the East Coast between Canada and Florida, and they are functionally extinct at this point. They probably will go extinct in our lifetime. And this is something that we could have prevented, we meaning the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
Extinction is a choice, and NOAA, the agency responsible for the North Atlantic right whale, has failed them completely. So we have all sorts of wildlife cases. We've been working on the manatees down in Florida, 3 whale species: the North Atlantic right whale, the Rice's whale in the Gulf of Mexico, and the Pacific right whale up near Alaska. We used to work on the Florida panther, but that's also another very sad case. We had a Louisiana black bear case. These days, though, most of my calls that I get are chemical related. And I think part of the reason for that is that I've been in the news a lot about chemicals. So people see that. For example, I just got a call this morning from a guy in Georgia talking about how there are trucks dumping landfill leachate directly into a river.
Now, the people who call you are public employees, is that right?
Yes.
They're all whistleblowers. You're not getting calls from the public.
We do get calls from the public occasionally.
Okay.
And although we don't usually take those, we often say to them, our clients are public employees. Do you know a public employee who's concerned about this? And they'll say, oh, yeah, there's
Okay,
this
good.
local person or this state person. And then we get in touch with them and we carry on.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Is this usually a case where employees are being stymied in the work that they want to do for political reasons by people in positions above them? Is that generally the case?
It's generally the case. It's not necessarily a political, it's all money. Follow the money.
Everything's money.
I truly believe that the reason these agencies are not doing their job in protecting human health and the environment is because industry is powerful, industry lobbies, and some of them, like in our case of EPA, some of these people are taking jobs at industry as soon as they leave EPA. There was one fellow who went back and forth between industry and EPA 4 times. There's this revolving door. And they can make a lot of money in industry, So when they work at EPA, for example, or a state agency, and they learn the inner workings and they learn the Achilles heels of these agencies, and then they go to industry, they are so valuable,
Sure.
right?
Of course they're valuable. Sure.
Yeah. So
they're insiders. They're insiders. Yeah.
Yeah. And also EPA in particular, but government agencies are so politically susceptible. So if you're a company in a state, that employs a lot of people, and you call your state senator or your state rep and say, EPA is, or the state, DEC is being mean to me and costing me money, and you're going to lose all these jobs. And then the professionals call the agency and say, what are you doing? It's a problem. It's a problem.
And, and all of these people who have the money and who have the power, and we're talking about human beings, right? They have children. They have grandchildren. They have plastic in their eyeballs. And in their testes.
Yep. I don't understand it. It's almost as if the rich think they can buy their way out of this contamination crisis. I don't get it. I can't wrap my brain around this because they can't. When we run out of clean water or clean air.
Yeah.
They're not somehow magically, exempt from these problems. They can build their bunkers. Right. Zuckerberg can build his bunker in Hawaii and come out in 3 to 5 years. But what's he going to find? He's going to run out of his MREs and his filtered water. And then honestly, we cannot science our way out of this. Every day people send me articles about how, oh, we're going to put a shade cloth over the sun, or we're going to put antacid into the oceans, or we're going to, it's no, just no, it doesn't work that way. We know what the answer is, but the answer is something that will cause people to lose certain conveniences.
That's right.
There was a guy in the LA Times a couple months ago who wrote an article saying, I have come to the jarring realization that my world is going to have to change. I'm going to have to stop getting single-use takeout because of climate change. And it's like, that's not what you're going to lose, buddy. We actually wrote a letter which got published because we were so horrified by his take, which was he was basically saying, all these NGOs, they need to give up public lands. We need to put solar panels and wind turbines and forget about the wildlife. Well, that is such a misconception. If we stopped burning fossil fuels tomorrow, if we solved the climate change crisis tomorrow, we'd still be screwed because of everything else we're doing, because of the chemicals, the pollution, the loss of biodiversity. People don't understand ecology. They don't understand that if we lose certain keystone species, we're dead. Humans are dead. We're just animals. If we lose bees, we will not survive.
That's
People
right.
don't understand this. They think that it's all about climate change, but climate change is the symptom. It's a symptom of ecological overreach. And people don't understand that. So just transitioning to electric everything is not the answer. Do we have to decrease greenhouse gases? 100%. But we have to do it through degrowth, not through electrify everything and mine everything and pave over all of our wildlands, because that's not going to save us.
And even if we had no other problem, it takes a long time to turn a planet around. I mean, the effects of climate change are going to be here, even if we, like you say, if we stopped tomorrow.
I agree. And I often liken PFAS contamination to climate change, because if we stopped burning fossil fuels tomorrow, the amount of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere is going to stay at about 427 parts per million for decades, if not hundreds of years, before it slowly starts coming down. Same thing with PFAS. If we stopped emitting PFAS into the environment tomorrow, we'd still have the same amount in our water, our soil, our food, our air, our rain for hundreds of years. We need to stop now. And I have heard ecologists say privately, nobody wants to say the quiet part out loud, but the only thing that's going to really save us is a total societal shift, which we know is never going to happen because it's going to take the world coming together. For example, getting rid of animal agriculture. That would help immensely, not just with greenhouse gases, but with land use. We could put so much land back into growing food so people wouldn't be starving. The only thing that's going to help is if there's some virus like the bird flu or something that wipes out most people. Do we want that to happen? Absolutely not. But we can't see another way out of this right now. And that's horrifying. For an ecologist like me, that's horrifying.
It's horrifying. And so what do we have? The 80% of the species that are still left are in danger, okay, of extinction. And, are we part of that 80%? Yeah. I mean, yeah, we are.
I have a Twitter account for work. And I tweeted a couple months ago, I tweeted a graphic from a peer-reviewed paper that showed that 96% of mammalian biomass on Earth is either humans, our domesticated animals, and only 4% are wild.
Really?
And to me,
wow.
that was the most horrifying graphic I had. And all I did was put this graphic up and say, this is the most horrifying graphic I've ever seen. It had over 2 million views. People harassing me. Some people were like, oh my God, this is awful. And other people were like, it's not enough. We need more domesticated animals and people. I mean, it just like the lack of understanding of what that means, not just for all the other species, but for humans. We are animals. I remember when my kids were little, they're both adults now. When my kids were in first grade, I would be invited, as a PhD in ecology and I come teach the kids about ecosystems and food webs. The first time I went into my my son's first grade class, I said, everybody close your eyes. And they all did. You know how first graders are.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, if you think people are animals, raise your hand. The only kid in the classroom who raised their hand was my son.
But I was just going to say, it was your kid.
I love it.
People don't realize that we are animals and susceptible to the same ecological forces that all other animals are.
Yeah.
And if you don't grasp that basic concept, you don't get what's happening here.
Right.
And that's what makes it so sad and frustrating. I can't sleep at night. I don't sleep.
Yeah.
Me too. I lie awake at night and think, oh my God, these are problems that have no solutions.
There are solutions, but they're not politically palatable.
They're not politically palatable, and they're not convenient. And
Degrowth. I love that. I haven't heard that before. Degrowth has got to be a term that frightens the crap out of economists.
It does.
And, government. I mean, the whole world is built on economic growth.
And as Edward Abbey said, growth for the sake of growth is the ideology of a cancer cell. We cannot continue to live this way as a species.
Yeah.
I've been vegan for 10 years. My house is totally run by the solar panels that I have on my roof. I pay no bills for my hot water, my heat, nothing. My electric car is charged with those solar panels. But I realize that not everybody can do this.
Yeah.
And if everybody did, it would destroy the earth because of all the mining stuff that we need. We have solutions. My only hope is that if we get leaders in government positions, presidents, prime ministers, who care about the earth and understand what humans are doing to it, there are steps we can take to make it better, to give us some more time to maybe find some technological solutions. So I really don't think we can science our way out of this completely. We do need degrowth. But if we get good leaders who understand this, or who will at least listen to the scientists who are saying ecological overreach is the biggest problem we have, then there's some hope. I have a little bit of hope, maybe. I have to have hope, because if I didn't have hope, I'd give up. And I can't. That's not in my nature. So we can do this. It's just not going to be easy. People want a convenient, easy solution. They want a technological solution. They want to be able to just say, oh, build a screen shielding the sun, or build a net that holds up the glacier, or whatever. No, it's going to take things like transitioning the whole world to a plant-based diet. That will help immensely stopping this better living through chemistry idea that everyone has. I mean, we can do this. It's just not going to be easy.
Kyla Bennett, Director of Science Policy at PEER, the nonprofit Public Employees for Environmental Responsibility. You can learn more about Kyla and the work of PEER at the organization's website, which is peer.org, peer.org. That's going to do it for our Green Street Show today. Special thanks to our friend Kyla Bennett and to all of you who are regular listeners to Green Street. Maybe you can do us a favor and tell some friends about Green Street. We need more people to hear the words of Kyla Bennett and help us make some changes in our world before it's too late. I'm Doug Wood. Patti and I will be back next week with another edition of Green Street. Thanks for listening.